Today's topic, the importance of phytonutrients. In fact, study after study after published study is showing that it may be good to help prevent cancer and even reverse cancer in some cases. With us, we have a researcher, a scientist. He's a PhD, Dr. Barrie Tan. Dr. Tan, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, we should mention, you've been studying vitamin E for more than 35 years. It's been your life's work.
It is.
And you were studying palm and rice to kind of look for the best antioxidant vitamin E. Is that right? And then you stumbled onto this other plant.
Yes.
It's better when you tell the story.
Okay, it is correct. Most vitamin E are tocopherol. Like if you extract it from soybean oil, if you extract it from corn oil, you see tocopherol. You do not see
So when you buy vitamin E over the counter or even a professional brand, it's almost all of this tocopherol form.
Yes.
Which is not the good form.
Not a good form. And in fact, if you were to give a number, because you said know your number, probably 95% or more than 95% of vitamin E that you go to a store to buy, it would be tocopherol. So therefore, finding tocotrienol as a supplement would be rare.
Okay.
And then, so I'm in the path to find out where can I find tocotrienol in the natural world. So I first found it from palm, then I found it from rice. This is a short, a few minutes or so. This had been 20 years of my life. So I thought, I need to take a break.
Okay.
So that was when I left Southeast Asia. Of course, all this time I was living in Massachusetts. And then I went to South America. The reason I went to South America was in the early 90s, Professor Johanna Seeden, she's an ophthalmologist, she said, and she discovered that on the back of the eye, there are lutein and zeaxanthin. It will protect the retina, particularly the macula, for macular degeneration. Then I said, since I'm a keratin scientist, I love this. I said, I know where to get this giant marigold from South America. So I went to South America.
To help for eyes.
To help. I had no notion for tocotrienol. So there I went, and sure enough, I saw the giant marigold. I said, okay, I got this. But fate has it, I saw 20 feet, 30 feet away from me an annatto plant. I saw it. I was so stunned.
Why?
And because the annatto is so beautifully red color, and when the pod, which is the fruit, opens, and you will see all the seeds, and there is no flesh. And that is an anomaly in the fruit kingdom, because all fruits have flesh.
Okay.
And then when we eat,
and this is just opened up the
just
seeds.
Open up seeds. It's as if that where the flesh is just air like that, and then the seed, it will stain your hand, and that's a keratin. And I'm a
Somebody
keratin.
told you actually, be careful with that plant because it'll stain your hand.
Yes,
you have to get soap to get it off.
Soap, otherwise it stain your hand for a long time. So I got the seed. I said, my goodness. I said, all keratins are protected, like if it's in the carrot, beta carotene, in the cell, tomato lycopene in the cell, and even in the lobster, it's bound to protein, and then it will be astaxanthin. So when I saw this intensely red color, I said, I need to study this. What is protecting the color, and what are the phytonutrients? So I took it back to the lab and then found out. I was expecting it to be a polyphenol. Polyphenol are good antioxidant, and surprisingly, there were none. Instead, it was tocotrienol. I was dragged back into vitamin E tocotrienol. That's why I refer to this. This annatto is the fate of my life.
So it's like pure tocotrienol?
Right.
Which is the part you can't find in nature, a high dose of it.
That is correct.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes, because normally in nature you find a mix of tocopherol, occasionally a mix of tocopherol with some tocotrienol. In this one here, it's completely tocopherol free, only the two tocotrienol, 2 of 8 possible molecules, only found 2. Now, then I really get excited because up until now, all the published study in animal study shows that of the 8 molecules, of the 8 compounds, the 2
inside of vitamin E we're talking about.
Inside of vitamin E, the 2 vitamin E that are most active in protecting many chronic conditions are delta tocotrienol and gamma tocotrienol. And would you believe it, when I discovered this from annatto, it only have 2 vitamin E compound. It would be delta tocotrienol and gamma tocotrienol. So I immediately called my friend up, the father of modern day tocotrienol, professor in University of Wisconsin. He said, Asaf, I got this. What do you think? And then I distinctively remember his remark. He said, Barrie, if tocotrienol will mitigate chronic condition, your Annatto Tocotrieonals better mitigate chronic condition. So I committed the rest of my 20 years to systematically study this compound.
So that you had to figure out a way to extract this tocotrienol out of the Annatto plant.
Yes.
Because it's currently being used, I guess, in cheeses, in dyes, in lipstick, because it's such a thick color.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then you studied the part about the healing benefits.
Yes.
And it loves cancer.
And it loves cancer.
So it loves to grab onto cancer cells and kill them.
Yes.
Is that true? That's not an overstatement.
That is true. The tocotrienol, particularly if it's delta and gamma tocotrienol, it recruits to the cancer cell much more potently than tocopherol. And it would go to the normal cell, and when it goes to the normal cell, it protects the normal cell. But when it comes, it recruits 10 times faster in pancreatic cancer, as an example, to the pancreatic cancer. And when it recruits there, it's not protecting the cancer cell. It kills the cancer cell. When it recruits the normal cell, it protects the normal cell. A very big difference.
Okay, let's talk about this, because we talked on the telephone. You said that there's a study with stage 1, stage 2 pancreatic cancer currently going on. I think you said in the Florida study.
Yes.
Is that right? And you said that these people were at stage 1, stage 2, and in 14 days, they had to get the tumors removed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And they took tocotrienol, this Annatto, for 14 days, and every one of them on the high dose, 600, 800 milligrams, created apoptosis, which is cancer cell death.
That is
that
correct.
true? And it happened?
That is true. And
the oncologists agreed with this?
Yes,
finding?
and they published this study. So it's not ongoing, it already happened. And the reason they do it 14 days, which is exceedingly short period of time, is because among the cancers, pancreatic cancer is the deadliest of all. They cannot wait. They have to excise the tumor. So when they did this, so I was a little nervous. This is such a short time to able to deliver an effect. And they did. Yes, they found that the optimal dose is about 400 to 800 milligrams. But the interesting thing is their lowest dose in the clinical trials is 200. Even at the lowest dose, they found that the cancer death in the cancer cell. I was amazed.
Okay, and that's one of the reasons why we had to have you on the show. One of my, he's not a friend of mine, but I've known him for about 20 years. Jonathan Lazat owns Designs for Health, which is one of the largest professional brand supplement companies in the country. And he said, you have to talk to Barrie Tan, the PhD, about this Annatto and what it's doing with cancer, and what it's doing with fatty liver, and what it's doing for prostate cancer and breast cancer and things like that. Let me mention, right at the beginning of your book, you have an ebook, and I'm going to quote it, and I'm going to paraphrase it slightly. The woman said she had stage 4 breast cancer, which is pretty bad. She refused chemo or radiation, and she took this Annatto pill. And within 6 months, she contacted you and said she's cancer-free. Is that right?
That is right. Now, we have
these are anecdotal stories, but these are real stories.
These are real stories. And we are seeing more and more of this coming to us because they're so grateful that this is working to them. We have no say. They believe it and they did this and it's working on them. In a scientific arena, you have to have control study. So this is not scientists won't accept it.
Okay.
But we have taken this onto a Petri dish, a test tube study we call it, and we have also done animal study. In the test tube study, we clearly see
like you put a cancer cell and you put the Annatto
Tocotrieonals
under microscope.
Yeah, and then you can see the cell just turn itself off and it just dies.
It dies.
And then we put normal cells. We put the tocotrienol from the Annatto on. It would help the cell. The cell would just grow normally.
Thicker, get better?
No, it just grow normally. You see, in other words, keep in mind, now the audience may be asking, you say, does it grow faster, better? No, it just grow normally. Because if you're a normal person, you grow normally. We see it. It didn't die. It didn't go faster. It didn't go slower. It grew normally.
Now you're going to a wedding, you said. And you said there was a guy given 3 months, a doctor, a medical doctor.
Yes.
Given 3 months to live and started taking Annatto. And that was 6 years ago.
That is right. And he's living to tell the story.
What kind of cancer?
He had liver cancer, and it's not even a study that we are conducting. There was not one of the one that I named, but he was wanting and desperate enough because he had 3 months to live. I sent to him. I told him that we don't have study. We have animal study on this, and it worked. He said that, but I don't have clinical trials. He said that, hey, you've got nothing to lose. And that's exactly what he said also. I sent it to him, and then I was holding my breath, see how it would work. And he actually told me, he emailed me back and said that he's doing better, can walk out of his hospital, and can leave to go home and return to be a medical doctor like that. So I was thrilled, and now 6 years later, I'm looking forward to meeting him in a few days.
This supplement, that's a vitamin E tocotrieonal, it's an antioxidant.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
So just so we have a definition of antioxidant, actually you helped me understand this from reading your book, but like for example, an apple, you bite out of an apple, it turns brown with the air over time, or an avocado turns brown.
Yes.
You squeeze a lemon on those things, that's the antioxidant. So in a way, it's kind of like an anti-aging formula for those two things.
Yes.
Okay. Is that how Annatto works at the cellular level? You say we have 38 trillion cells. Lots of books on the market about cellular health, mitochondria. And you say this targets and makes your cells healthier. So we'll start there.
Yes, thank you. And it does work as an antioxidant. And 38 trillion cells is about 5,000 times the population of the Earth. So there's a lot of cells. And the most important thing on the cell is the cell membrane. And why the cell membrane? Because the cell membrane is populated with fatty acid, with fat.
So it's made of like fat?
Yeah, it's made of like fat. And then they're easy to be oxidized, to go rancid. So now you got to have things that protect it. And the best protectant of the fat on the cell wall to go rancid is tocotrieonal and tocopherol. And between the two, tocotrieonal perform 50 times better than tocopherol to protect to protect the fat on the cell wall. And why is it so important to protect the cell wall? Because the cell wall maintains the integrity of what goes in and what goes out. Otherwise, the cell is not going to.
So what does that mean? So cells have things that are going in and out.
For example, the nutrients have to go into the cell.
Okay.
And when the cell make refuse, they have to get out of the cell. It cannot stay in the cell. It have to come out of the cell. So for that, for example, sugar have to go in the cell to give the cell energy. And when the cell produces ATP, which is energy conversion, it has to deliver outside. Or when the cell make all these protein, this and that, it is also waste produced. So when the waste is produced, it has to get out of the cell. They go in and out of the cell through the cell membrane. So if the cell membrane is not performing properly, the cell is not functioning
So this
properly.
Annatto,
Yes.
by taking it,
Yeah.
you can show in the lab, in animal studies, and now some of the human studies, that it's making the cells stronger,
Yes.
bigger. You're a scientist and a researcher and a professor, and you lecture to medical doctors across the country. Is that correct? So are they more interested? I mean, would you say this is one of the most powerful antioxidants that is found right now in nature?
For lipid antioxidant.
Okay.
If it's water soluble, then they are alpha lipoic acid and vitamin C. But in a lipid format, then it is the strongest lipid antioxidant.
For the sake of time, and I'm trying not to rush here, but we only have about 5 minutes left. This is working with people with Alzheimer's. It's good for the bones. Helps with the arteries, keeping plaque from sticking to it. Radiation protection, good for the prostate, breast cancer, cholesterol and triglycerides, weight loss, fatty liver. And people in a study with high triglycerides, the blood fat, took this and had a 28% lower triglycerides just by taking this.
Yes.
All of that's true.
All of that is true. And the big picture is it helps people with chronic condition. It lower triglycerides so that they would not get into diabetes. It lower cholesterol so that they would not plaque the artery. It contain the sugar so they also would not go into diabetes. And also if it lowers the fat, it also removes the fat out of the liver. And so people would not have fatty liver. it also helps postmenopausal women to make the calcium stay in the bone so that they would not get into osteoporosis.
So there's studies to back up everything you just said.
Yes, with one correction. So far, we have done animal study, and it works on returning memory to the animal. We have not gotten to clinical trial on dementia and Alzheimer's disease yet, but we're very hopeful.
Okay, so this antioxidant that's in the vitamin E, tocotrienol, very powerful. It targets inflammation. Not only does it kill cancer cells, because you know this, you could see it attacking cancer cells, but it attracts inflammation. So with Alzheimer's, they're saying now the new, like Bredesen's book on the end of Alzheimer's is saying that amyloid plaques might be an inflammatory response, a protective mechanism. Do you think that that's what's going on and why it may help with Alzheimer's prevention?
Yes. Based on our other studies, both animal and clinical trials, we systematically see that when the protection is as an antioxidant, it will reduce the inflammation. And when you reduce the inflammation, you essentially silence many of the aberrant things, the bad things that the cell is going to, because you silence them, because you reduce the oxidation.
And it reaches the brain?
And it reaches the brain, as well as the liver, as well as those 3 or 4 organs I mentioned to you on cancer.
Let's talk about fatty liver for a second. And we are rushed on time. But so this in a way is good for weight loss.
It is
helps
good
the
for
metabolism.
weight loss.
How?
Okay, we were not expecting weight loss, as in weight loss product. We give it to the patient for 3 months, and surprisingly, the weight loss by 10 pounds. And then now we're conducting a follow-up study for 6 months, and they continue to have sustained weight loss up until 17 pounds.
How? What's going on?
Okay. We think that what's going on is 2 things. They take the fat out of the liver, because a fatty liver is a good thing. And the enzymes, the stress enzyme in the liver drop about 20-25%. An excellent thing. Every endocrinologist will tell you it's a good thing.
All of this is because the cells are stronger or better.
Yes, and functioning better.
Okay.
Because if the cell normally does this, but when the cell is becoming dysfunctional, it can't do what it's supposed to do. And in the liver, the thing is very simple. When the liver gets past 5% fat, it will beginning to be stressed. Once it gets stressed, it will be not able to perform all the 600 functions that the liver does.
So it makes the liver better.
It make the liver better. And this is clearly an exciting thing. I'm looking forward to the results coming up.
Now, could you prove, like, for example, and this may be much of a stretch, but like inflammatory markers, like you take Annatto, are they looking at like C-reactive protein, things like this? Is it having any effect on these inflammatory markers?
Yes, we study 2 markers. We study something called oxidized fat from the blood. And the oxidized fat drop typically about 30-40%. We were very encouraged. Oxidized fat in the blood no good. In the blood is no good. We also study C-reactive protein, a stress enzyme from the liver in the blood. And when it dropped about 20-30%. So all that to say,
20 to 30%. The numbers for C-reactive protein drop.
Yeah, and so the C-reactive protein dropped 20-30%, and the oxidized fat dropped 30-40%. So the 2 combined is a fantastic condition for people that have fatty liver condition. When you lower inflammation in the body, this is important in the body, because that is a sign that tells us that your body is beginning to kick back in, and is out of kilter, is getting back into normal kilter, and is functioning properly. So it is very good to see the inflammation under control.
Okay, now you have other studies, and I'm back to cancer for a minute. You have new studies coming out even the end of the year.
Yes.
Many studies. What are they about?
Okay. We have one, we finished one is on ovarian cancer. At the end of the year, we have 2 studies that will come out. They will be on breast cancer and on colon cancer. These are much bigger number of people on breast cancer, and even larger number of people with colon cancer. And they are also randomized and blinded study. When these studies come out, we will know how tocotrienol will work with women with breast cancer, how they fight against that, and also with colon cancer that people might have.
Now, one of the most well-known guys in the world of supplements, professional brand with medical doctors, the largest company that services doctors with professional brand supplements is Jonathan Lazat.
Yes.
We're going to bring him on the show. He told me, he said, Randy, because every time I talk to him probably once every 5 years. And I always say, if I only had to take one supplement, what would it be? And he called me and he said, Randy, the one supplement I found, which is this Annatto 300, a vitamin E.
Yes.
And he believes it. So we're going to talk to him a little bit about it. In fact, he was bold. He said, Randy, and he's almost yelling on the phone. He's so passionate about it. And this is not a salesy guy. He's a science nerd.
Yeah.
He said, Randy, I don't believe I'll ever get cancer. That's a bold statement. I mean, it's anecdotal and it's his opinion. I know that you're not in a position to make those kind of claims, but